Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Miranda and I am the Enchantress of Avalon. Now for today's video, as it's Monday, I decided I would do a bit of a macabre and morbid Monday video, and I'm going to be talking about Tim Burton's Corpse Bride. Now, I do realize that Corpse Bride is inspired by and based upon some older tales like The Finger, and even The Demon in the Tree is often cited as a source of inspiration. But I'm not going to be covering the older folk tales, although they are super interesting. I'm going to be talking about Corpse Bride itself and how it is this Victorian Gothic fairy tale, that the style that Tim Burton does really, really well. So, where to begin? It's such a great movie. It is basically, for anyone who might not have seen it, it is the story of Victor Van Dort, who is engaged to be married to a woman named Victoria. And it's an arranged marriage because Victoria's parents are destitute, pretty much. They are titled, but they lack money. And the Van Dorts have no titles to their, to their names. They have nothing like that. They're nouveau riche, but they do have the money that's desperately needed. And that's how Victor and Victoria got engaged to one another. And he's just meeting her the day before their wedding. And he's incredibly clumsy and freaked out. He doesn't know what to do. He's never met this woman before, but he's meant to marry her. And he actually is attracted to her. He actually does like her, and he wants to make it work, but all of the pressure is really getting to him. So during the rehearsal, he ends up flubbing up a bunch of times and then going out into the woods to try and practice his vows. And these vows are absolutely beautiful. And I've actually heard of people using them as in their wedding because they are really pretty. The vows are beautiful. I did not use them in my wedding, but I would be lying if I said that I didn't consider it because they are very pretty. My husband and I just wrote our own vows though. Anyway, so he says his vows perfectly in the cemetery, in the woods, says them perfectly. And he places the ring on what he thinks is just a branch, a twig. It happens to be the skeletal finger of a corpse bride, though, and her name is Emily. She was betrayed by a man that she loved and wanted to marry. Her parents did not approve of this man, and so she took some of the money. So she grabbed a wedding dress, took some of her parents' money in order to run away with this man that she was in love with, and he murdered her instead and buried her in a shallow grave out in the woods. It is an absolutely tragic and painful tale. And she's just so happy to be married to Victor because in her eyes, they are married. Because he did, say his vows and everything. And she'd been basically waiting to be married all this time. You have to feel sorry for Emily, everything that she's gone through, and now she's in the afterlife very, very lonely. And the guy who murdered her is just out and about. And we actually get to see him have his comeuppance, though, because after Victor disappears, he attempts to marry Victoria. Of course, technically he does. Because Victor disappears for a while into the afterlife and then comes back with Emily in tow, and they are supposed to be trying to find a way to make sure their marriage stays official because, can the living marry the dead? Yeah, the vows are till death do us part, so who knows? And basically, it's determined that the only way for them to be married permanently is if Victor's willing to die and come to the afterlife. But the afterlife is a lot more fun than Victorian London is portrayed. It's all drab and gray in the life, and it's colorful and this party in death. They're singing and dancing and just having a grand old time. The complete opposite of how we see the people who are still living. They're living, but they don't really appreciate the fact that they're still alive. Oh, but anyway, when Victor had disappeared, that's when this other guy steps up and he's like, yeah, no, I'll marry her. And he's titled and elegant and suave. Of course he is. He's charismatic. He's a con man. And it comes together that when Emily sees him, she knows exactly who he is, of course. And he gets his comeuppance because when Victor was willing to die to be with Emily and he thought Victoria might have been happy, he was willing to drink the poison. But instead, the villain is the one that drinks the poison and ends up dead. But his afterlife isn't going to be so much fun. No, no, no. Not after what he did to Emily, who is beloved by everyone in the afterlife. And of course, it famously ends with Emily turning to butterflies. And a lot of people have wondered what it is and have discussed what the meaning of the ending might be. My interpretation was always that she found peace. Like the afterlife that all of them are living, although they're having fun, that's for spirits who aren't at rest, not fully at rest at least. They're kind of in an in-between. I view that afterlife as more being just beyond the veil, but they're not fully at peace with things. They still have connections to the living world, as we do see when like there's the lady who meets up with her husband. Her husband died 15 years ago. He still had a connection to the light, to the living world, because his wife was still alive. Emily no longer has that connection. The man who killed her is dead, and she sees Victor and Victoria being happy together, and she has the And she truly does love Victor, and she has the moral fortitude to let him go and be happy, even if it's not with her. And that's strength of character. That's real love right there, because she's willing to give up an afterlife with him in order to let him be happy in his life and decide she doesn't want him to kill himself to be with her. There's so much character growth on the part of Emily that makes her such an intriguing figure. And I always get teary-eyed when I watch that end, because she deserves so much more. Her life was cut tragically short. All she ever wanted was love, and she did love someone twice, actually. She loved the man that killed her, and then she loved Victor, but he was so connected to the living world still, and he did have feelings for Victoria, even though he just met her. But he also just met Emily, so there's that. It's a beautiful, tragic, romantic fairy tale, really. And I love it for that reason. And yes, it is morbid and macabre, but it is beautifully done. And I remember being blown away the first time I saw it, because this isn't just a silly movie about a guy who accidentally puts a ring on the finger of a corpse and crazy stuff ensues. There's so much character depth in these figures that lacks in some content that's made like strictly for adults, you know. There's so many movies that are just stupid raunchy comedies. I mean, sure they're fun, but they don't have any depth. Whereas this is a PG rated movie. A lot of people consider it a kids movie, although I think it's goes well beyond being a kids movie. This is a movie that really speaks to innate truths. I mean, everyone will die. You have to deal with that. But your life shouldn't be drab and boring and demure in hopes of getting to a good afterlife. So much so that the afterlife is better than the life you're living. Why not bring some of that energy into your actual life? Enjoy life while you have it. And know when to let go. You know, if you love someone, but it's not working, in this case, it's an extreme example of it's not working. She's dead and he's still alive. He would have to kill himself to be with her. But even in other relationships in real life, sometimes there comes a time when two people, no matter how much they care about each other, just aren't good for one another. And I think this teaches a lesson in a pretty dramatic fashion about being willing to say, this isn't working out. It's time for both of us to move on. Victor moves on with Victoria, and Emily moves on and finds peace because she's finally had closure on her story. Her story has come full circle. And even though I really wish that Emily could have just gone back to the afterlife and partied her heart out all for eternity, that would have been awesome. I think wherever she ended up was probably better because she truly became self-sufficient and embraced her own innate sovereignty of spirit and, you know, got revenge on the bastard who killed her in the first place, and also was able to play matchmaker and let the man that she'd grown to love be with a woman that he wanted to be with and remain in the land of the living. So that got a bit more poignant than I was expecting, but I hope you've enjoyed this short video about some of my thoughts on the movie Corpse Bride. And if you did like this, please like, comment, subscribe, check out my blog, whiteroseofavalon.life, and I'll also link in my Discord server if you're interested in chatting. So have a very fabulous Macabre Monday, everyone.